Fun. This is episode 45 of Standing Out. Standing Out is a remarkable interview style podcast with the intention to highlight women and men making outstanding contributions in their field. This podcast is generously sponsored by Think Global. Think Global is a business advisory firm working with women entrepreneurs around the globe to scale their businesses to the next level. This podcast is also generously sponsored by Smash Fund. Smash Fund is for the dreamer who dares to dream, the entrepreneur who eats obstacles for breakfast, and a place where passions, people, and life collide. You can find your special invitation code in the description of this podcast. Today, I'd like to welcome Gabe Blanchet. Gabe is co-founder and CEO of Grove. Gabe believes that inspiring and educating people to have fun growing their own food is a powerful way to promote healthy food choices for people individually and for our planet as a whole. Gabe holds an MIT engineering degree, is a member of Forbes 30 Under 30 and the Kairos 50, and previously led business development and customer learning at a Boston startup, GrabCAD, acquired in 2014 for $100 million. In addition to leading the team at Grove, Gabe is an avid hockey player, skier, bookworm, triathlete, and hiker. Gabe, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. So let's talk about MIT for a second, because I think that sounds like a very desirable place to go. And so I want to talk about, what was the plan when you were in school? Like, was Grove on the radar at that point, or was it later that this idea came to fruition?
Sure. Yeah, MIT is an incredible place to be around a lot of smart people. So definitely, as I came into MIT, very quickly you start realizing that there's a lot of people going into more traditional career paths, whether finance or consulting or banking or technology roles at established companies. But at MIT, and it's rather rare, there are some other schools in some other areas that are hotbeds of innovation like this, but it's quite common for people to be exploring these days, what can they start up themselves? What can they bring from a lab out into the real world? How can they innovate and not get a real job after school and instead work for themselves? So I was pretty swept up in that right away, which was fantastic. That doesn't mean I started a company my freshman year or anything. I spent a lot of time having fun, making
As
friends.
Everyone does. What freshman in college doesn't,
It's surprising at MIT. There's actually a cohort of people every year that comes in with so much intensity around their study or around their entrepreneurial idea that they skip over being sort of a kid.
Oh my God.
Or at least a college kid. So I assure everybody I didn't do that. But had a lot of fun and made a lot of connections those first few years. Left MIT twice, once to through hike the Appalachian Trail, which hiking, being outside, being connected to this beautiful earth that we live on has always been a big part of my life. It's just it's what inspires me. And it inspires me to make sure that this, a similar planet or a better planet is around for me when I'm older, and then for my kids and my kids' kids, and so on and so forth.
How long does it take to hike the Appalachian Trail? Is that a couple weeks?
It's about 2,200 miles, and I averaged about 20 miles a day, which is a big day of hiking. So I did it pretty fast in 4 months. Most people take 5 months up to 6 months. Yeah, incredible experience. Really, and it was great to get out of the MIT bubble a little bit. We're around so many smart engineering-oriented people at MIT, but the world is way bigger than that, and there's a lot of different types of people. And so I met some sort of Southern Baptist evangelical Christians and hiked with them for a long time, and that really helped me understand some of the differences. Coming from a liberal bubble like Massachusetts and specifically MIT in Boston, you don't get exposed to all that stuff. So
it's amazing what meeting people can do, just opening your mind and seeing different ideas and beliefs than what you have. I think that's really valuable.
Absolutely. So I left MIT that first time. Then the second time was to GrabCAD, where I really learned what it's like to raise venture capital. It was about $14 million while I was there.
Wow. And what was your role in that? Were you working there or you were leading the company?
I was not leading the company. The company is led by Hardy, who is the co-founder and CEO.
Okay.
He was in his late 20s and a great mentor to me. I'm so thankful that he asked me to drop out of MIT to join him, and I'm grateful that I did.
When someone asks you to drop out of MIT, like, how does that go? Like, for yourself and for probably your parents, is that an easy conversation, or what's that like?
I'm sure it's different for everybody. My parents are just tirelessly supportive of what I want to do.
Amazing,
And I can't be more thankful for that. They've always encouraged me to dream big, and when I've failed or underperformed, they've scooped me up.
Yeah.
And so really thankful to have that, and realize that not everybody has that. But so really thankful for that, but also thankful that MIT is so flexible. I knew that because I'd already left to I knew just what the process for getting back in is.
Got it.
Which is not that difficult, especially if you have made a good impression with some faculty. And by the end of MIT, I was very close friends with the administrators.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because they had to track me in and out of the school. They had to go kind of miss an exam to go pitch venture capitalists, and I was always finagling the system. And so I think they liked it.
Yeah, right. I mean, just something different. And I'm sure, what you were mentioning earlier, just there's some universities around the country that are hotbeds for this innovation. And I live in the Denver Boulder area. And so I see that here. And I think they want to be supportive of that, and so it's great that you got to work so closely with them.
Yeah.
Now you started Grove with your roommate, right?
Yeah. So I, towards the end of my stint at GrabCAD, my roommate and my best friend, we joined the same fraternity. I've always loved spending time with him because he's just such a brilliant young man, and able to and fun. We just have a lot of fun together. But he's brilliant, and he's able to think in terms of complex systems better than anyone that I've ever met. And that's a really good trait for a business partner, and it's a really good trait for an innovator. Not to just have bold ideas, but really to think about how they fit in a very complex framework of our planet, of our planet's challenges, of how people want to live. So that's Jamie in a nutshell. And he was studying aerospace engineering, thinking that he would go into wind turbine design.
Oh, yeah.
But so he's always wanted to solve world challenges. I mean, that's what gets him up every day.
Wait, now do you two have similar? Are you two more similar or complementary to each other?
I think pretty nuanced question. I think we both share at our core. I mean, so yes and no to both of those. At our core, I think we both share a real passion for working on big, tough challenges, whether it's starting a particular type of company or looking at certain types of politics. We want to solve big challenges, and then we do it with an engineering approach that we've just learned through MIT and through our background. So that's at our core. But then how we actually think about challenges, I'm definitely much more pragmatic and sort of step by step, and I can make things happen, and that's a lot of the value I bring. Get people excited, recruit them, raise capital, that type of thing. And Jamie's a bit longer term oriented and longer term thinker. This is where we have to move. This is in 5 years and 10 years and 30 years, this is what it should look like. And so he sort of provides the map, and then I navigate us through it.
Okay. Well, that's a great partnership to have that short-term and long-term kind of merge together.
Yeah.
So as he's getting his degree, and your degree's in engineering, and his degree is aerospace engineering, right? How did Grove become a concept?
Sure. So I was working at GrabCAD. Jamie, for the summer between his junior and senior years, actually went to work on a research farm in North Virginia, which was sort of off the path. He was interning at wind turbine startups mostly.
Okay.
Thought that was his path, but then wanted to go back home. He's from Virginia, and worked at this farm, and realized that in terms of, especially back in 2012, in terms of the global challenges that we're facing, energy is a huge one. But there, especially back in 2012, there's a lot of focus at MIT on energy. A lot of smart people working on it. So it still remains big challenges. But when you look at agriculture, which uses 70% of the fresh water on Earth, contributes 30% of carbon emissions to the atmosphere, and is wholly unhealthy for the ecosystems and the natural settings where farms are, with nitrate fertilizer runoff and monocropping and all sorts of glyphosate, pesticide, herbicide use, and then all the way to the end where we're consuming the food that comes out of farms, and 69% of cancer can be directly related back to our diet, and we've got 100 million obese people in the U.S. So it's like, what is working in this little system that we've cooked up over the Industrial Revolution here? Yeah. What is working well? Why are we doing it like this? And so I think that really hit Jamie pretty hard while he was on this experimental research farm. And the cool thing about this farm in Northern Virginia, run by a University of Virginia professor, was that they were also looking at some of the solutions, some of the alternatives to the current state of industrial agriculture. And some of those solutions were sort of ecologically based permaculture, where you grow a variety of different things in the same setting. It's a little bit harder to use big machines to harvest it all efficiently, but you can get sort of long-term sustained farms where the actual labor over the long term is much lower. And Jamie also came across a fascinating system or technology or method of growing plants called aquaponics, which is where you combine fish and plants in a closed loop system, mostly closed loop system, where you just feed the fish waste feeds the crops with natural organic sort of fertilizer, nitrates. The plants grow big and strong, and then they clean the water and bring the clean water back to the fish. So you get very little algae buildup or anything.
That is fascinating. Like me, non-engineer, just regular consumer. I happen to be from the Midwest where there's cornfields as far as you can see. So I'm
sure
familiar with that. But as soon as you're saying that, I think of those, what are they called? Beta fish. They're in the little jar, but then they have the plant coming up on top of so same sort of system, but on a large scale, right?
Right. Yeah. That same system can be used on so many different scales. And it's such an elegant way of working with nature instead of it.
Beautiful. That's amazing. So is that something, well, you say on many different scales. So is that something that potentially, like me as our family, would we have that in our yard or wherever in our community, or would it be like on the large scale of, 50 miles away is the farm that provides for this area? Like how large or small does that go?
Well, I think what we need to do, and what we really want to do, is to have a multitude of different solutions. Mm-hmm. I think that the single beta fish with a basil plant coming out of it is a great way to introduce people in their offices.
The concept, yeah.
I think what we're working on at Grove right now, our first product, which is you can buy it right now on our site and in production, and people really love it, is a bookshelf-sized aquaponic system. So fish tank on the bottom, and then 2 levels of production with LED grow lights over them on top of it, and it looks absolutely beautiful. We use bamboo wood and stuff like that.
How much food? So something like that, like a bookshelf size, how much food would that produce?
Sure. So I think it's important first to say that food production, while it's the easiest thing to sort of think about, it's not the only value.
Okay.
So we'll talk about food production, but this thing cleans your air, brings oxygen into your home. The grow lights, if they're not this ugly purple hue, if you get full spectrum grow lights, which is what's included in groves, it sort of sets your circadian rhythm and brings natural light into your home. And then the other thing is it's fun. Why did Farmville take off so much? Well, it's because it's kind of fun to kind of tend to your own Tamagotchi.
Totally.
Why do 1 out of every 3 households in the U.S. have a thriving garden? No, it's because it's fun. It's not often not because it's for food production.
And it's a beautiful, like something like that that's fun, but also just good is a great way. Like I have 2 children. It's a great way to get the next generation involved in those things, because I don't know about you. I think we're similar in age. I feel like we were, robbed is probably a little bit of a dramatic word, but I feel like we didn't have a lot of those experiences. There was a gap, and I think bringing it back is beautiful.
I think you're spot on with that. I think as societies tend to move towards cities now and live in more modern lifestyles with iPads and embedded chips eventually, and Google Glass and Snapchat and
all of it.
how do we reconnect to things that make us feel human and connected to our earth in a modern context? I mean, I drive a GTI, a VW GTI, and I live in Somerville, which is a suburban urban place in Massachusetts. And I don't want to give any of that up. I'm not going sort of back to the plains in the Midwest and trying to run around. I want both. Is it too much to ask for a modern lifestyle deeply rooted in nature?
Right.
So yeah, that's really at our core. To get back to food production, it's quite astounding actually what you can grow in a very small amount of space. With a bookshelf size system, you can grow a side salad every day for 1 or 2 people.
Oh wow!
So harvesting every single day, and if you go away for a week, that's fine. You just come back and you better get harvesting.
That is so much more than I thought. Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I mean, when you so there's this whole field now within agriculture called controlled environment agriculture, which is basically how do we actually control the light, the air.
Yeah.
So the sort of environmental factors, temperature, humidity, airflow, stuff like that, CO2 levels, and then the nutrients in the root zone, the phosphorus, potassium, nitrate, roughly 26 micro and macronutrients that contribute to plant growth. When you can start to shift those and play with those and provide optimal sort of values for whatever you're growing, you can really accelerate how fast things grow in a natural way. We're not adding growth hormone or anything. You can do that. You can start to tweak flavor and taste of the produce that you're growing.
Wow, you can be your own scientist on it.
Be your own. Well, you can be your own farmer.
I
mean, really fun ways too. I think I don't want it to sound too intimidating. We do have some. We have some customers at Grove who are microbiologists who have genetically sequenced their grove, and they're having so much for they're growing wheat and bread from their wheat and stuff. It's not super, you don't get much bread, but there are people hacking and having that much fun.
Just having fun with it.
But on the other side, there's people who've never grown a plant before who know that they want a little more nature in their lives and more fresh food. And the Grove ecosystem is a great way to get started with that. So it's really for everybody, but you can take it to the extreme.
Right. So with this product, so it's sold to individual families or individual people just online, right? Or is there a distributor involved?
Right now, we do the vast majority of our sales online through our website, grovegrown.com. We are also so the majority of our sales are to individual people in their homes. We design this to look beautiful in a living room or a kitchen or even a bedroom. But one thing that's really exciting is that more and more teachers are reaching out to us and saying, this is a classroom in a box. I mean, we can teach lessons in biology, chemistry, physics, food systems at large, anthropology, farming, where we came from, and to all different levels too. You take a first grader and it's really about planting seeds and getting excited that greens are popping up.
Right. We literally have I have a kindergartner. We have 2 seeds downstairs that are starting to pop up, and you wouldn't believe the excitement, you know?
We have customers that they have compared the Grove ecosystem to a Christmas tree, in that their kids wake up in the morning and run down the stairs to feed the fish, sort of check on the ecosystem and see how big the plants are compared to yesterday. And that's just so fun. You know, that really makes this all very worth it to me. Even outside of food productions and food production, global food systems, startup, whatever all the stresses are. When I hear those stories and even watch these kids and meet them, these are kids that are growing up in a modern context, connected to nature and to food.
That was actually, so one of my next questions about being an entrepreneur is, how do you recover from a tough day? Because we know there's awesome days, but there's also days where it's like, oh my goodness. But is it just keeping those stories in mind and connecting with the people who are using the product? Is that what you would say helps you through tougher days?
I think that's critical.
Yeah.
I think, and to that point, I think working on something that you can find deep meaning in is so important, and you define that yourself. For me, the fact that there's, I love to spend time outside. The fact that there's a slice of that in every product that we ship means a lot to me. The fact that I've really changed my diet from, I don't know, maybe typical American diet as I was a college athlete to much more plant-based and sort of ecologically sound, and I feel better and my skin's better and everything like that. The fact that I know that our customers are and people who've just seen our product and our brand and are excited about it.
Yeah,
just our customers. Yeah, so really seeing that positive impact can bring me up after a bad day. But I also want to stress that keeping a level head on what you need to do to take care of yourself as an entrepreneur, that's so important. So for me, that involves my family, spending enough time with my parents and my brothers. Involves my co-founder, who's my best friend. We can have an insanely stressful day or stressful month or stressful year even.
Yeah.
But as long as we can get out and go trail running together, go skiing, and sort of reconnect with each other in a deeper way, it can remind you that this isn't the apocalypse. This is just an incredible opportunity that we have to bring a new product and concept to make the world better. And that even our worst days, we still get to do something really, really lucky.
And isn't that amazing? Even I love that on your worst days, you still get to do something really lucky. Like, how lucky are we to be able to do one of the things that we just want to do, that's it. But I think there's a lot of value too in getting out of the office or wherever your normal workplace is and doing the things like hiking and skiing. And I know I have a friend that we'll go on hikes together, and although we're still talking about work, there's something different about just walking and being in nature and kind of getting it out and working through it rather than sitting in front of the computer feeling super stressed about it. So, okay.
Sure.
Go ahead.
I think it really also depends on job function. So I think we just have to take a lot more computer time. And so how do you fit that in? I don't know. But then my role now as CEO is very relational. I meet a lot of people. I get the opportunity to meet a lot of people. And so I try to mold my days into things that combine a lot of my interests. So right after this interview, actually, I'll be walking down for probably an hour long walk with a venture capitalist. So give them an update on the business, and I'll bring my iPad so we can talk digitally if we need to. But yeah, how do you mesh? I think that'll be a big theme with people our age, and is work-life symbiosis.
Right.
Not just separating the two, where one's sitting at a computer and one's doing life.
Right.
You really integrate them.
And I think, being in this remote sort of workforce, and we're the first generation to really be in that bucket on a mass sort of scale, I think you're right. And it's so much easier for us to blend those things, like to have your earphones in and talk on the phone and be walking. Like, that is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's great. So as we wrap up, what is one thing that's on your radar as an industry expert that you think we'll all be talking about in a year from now?
Oh, sure. Interesting.
Like, what do you have the insider knowledge on?
Well, I mean, Yeah, it's pretty obvious to me, but I guess for everybody listening, different ways of growing food are coming. Whether that's cultured meat, so meat that doesn't come from these gigantic, really, really bad for the earth, livestock farms, and in some ways unethical if you're uncomfortable with that, which I am. Different ways of growing crops using some mixture of sunlight and very efficient LED lights, and better, sort of more honed in nutrient delivery systems and methods, some based in very sterile practices, which I'm not as big a fan of. That's almost getting back to our conventional way of thinking, and some very ecologically minded, which is what Grove represents, and a number of other companies and movements and technologies where we're actually harnessing nature. But so I think as sort of an industry insider, I think it will be interesting to watch how consumers react. And in some ways we get to shape some of that dialogue, but in some ways it'll get shaped for us. How people react to these new types of food and of protein and of living. It'll be really fascinating to watch, but the possibilities are endless. I go back into the R&D lab, the urban research farm that we have, headquarters of Grove, and this could be on Mars. This is the same stuff.
Wow.
That is going to feed people as they travel between planets, as they live other places, as Dubai tries to grow food in the desert so they don't have to import Canada, in places in northern latitudes where growing seasons are so short. And so the possibilities are endless. I think we're just at the very beginning of something really special.
That is really awesome. I'm sorry for my phone ringing. I can't seem to turn it off at the moment, but we'll edit that. It's just going to go. Sorry, I just wanted to get that off there. I'll edit that piece. Don't worry about that. Okay, so picking up, when you talk about being able to grow food on planets, I think of The Martian and him growing potatoes. And I think that was one of those things. And I don't know, like, as just a watcher of the movie, I don't know, like, how much is not true or true. But when I watched it, I'm like, oh, I don't think we're far from that. I think that is very possible. And so I love that you're saying, oh, yeah, this can be done, so that's really awesome.
Yeah, thank you. I think, it's a very exciting time to be alive and to be an entrepreneur, and there's just so much opportunity. And we've got inspiring figures. History's often had inspiring figures, but I can't think of anyone that embodies what it means to be sort of a civilization and society sort of loving entrepreneur as Elon Musk. There's this guy giving speeches about how he's going to help this, our planet and our society become multi-planetary. Do you know how many young people are like me, are listening to that and thinking, how can I play a part? What can I do to contribute to that? And not just multi-planetary, whether it's sustainable energy, sustainable transport, more, one thing I'm passionate about that he doesn't touch on right now is sort of living with nature and being connected to our earth and developing regenerative systems instead of destructive systems. But the number of people that he's inspiring and people like him are inspiring is really, it's new. It's new to be able to reach that many people with that power.
We are the generation. Yeah, we are the generation that grew up believing by the time we were our adult age, we would be living like the Jetsons. And I think, you know what I mean? And so I think exploring what we can do with the planets is, I think we're all interested, like just fascinated by it and wanting to know how we can be a part of it.
Totally. As we keep our eyes towards the sky, I think our eyes should be there and we should have this adventurous spirit.
Yeah.
The pushback that I get sometimes for dreaming like that is that we have so many problems here, and that we have to, here I am doing this interview in this hotel room, and right outside of my window, down 2 floors, there's a group of homeless folks who don't have a place to live. And So it's important, I think, to keep our eye on both.
Yeah.
What's happening here and now, and how can we contribute here? But also, how can we not stop dreaming? How can we keep pursuing bigger and bigger, more ambitious things for humankind and for just biology in general, which is a pretty cool course we have on this planet.
Right. Well, thank you so much for being here, Gabe. That was really insightful, and it was just great talking to you.
Yeah, thank you, Katrina. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome.